Okina semdol kake mofaseda.
Welcome to Talking in Stations, a podcast about EVE Online. Today, we're going to talk about the eve of CSM elections, which happen tomorrow, Monday, and they go for a week. We'll talk all about that with somebody who's very well experienced with it, Noizy Gamer. But first, I want to introduce, we'll also talk about invasions, and we'll also talk about some of the wars that are raging right now in the north and in the south. So we've got triple threat today. So first, let me introduce the co-hosts and the crew. We'll start with Ash Jarathi.
Greetings, fellow Imperians. I am Ash Jarathi, and I am the defender of the world against the invasions.
Okay, I'm convinced. And next, we have Ron from Test.
Happy Sunday, guys.
All right. And today with us, you'll see in the top right is McLeod.
What up? Hey, guys.
Also from the Initiative. And as guest today, we're going to have Noizy Gamer with us.
Hello, everybody.
And also, we have a pleasure to have him on the first time on this show is streamer Torvald Urez.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for having me.
That was too simple a name for me to screw up, but you say it for me. How do you say your name?
Torvald Uruz.
Uruz. That's kind of funny. All right, and he's very familiar with invasions and also streaming. But so welcome to the show, Torvald. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, the first thing we need to do is check in on the map and see what's going on in the tribute area as the Imperium is invading the north that belongs to Northern Coalition, Pandemic Legion, and Horde. And then we'll go south to see what is going on between the hot zone that is between Winter Coalition and Legacy Coalitions. All right. So what do we know about the north?
You know, the North has been slowly progressing, and the Imperium has been going great with their plan of glassing tribute. They've, hit over 18 iHubs so far. They hit at least one or two every day. They don't always succeed on the iHubs. That's where we've seen a lot of the major conflicts, but it is a constant structure bashing, cleaning up the area, and you can go to tribute basically any time or day and see, structure bashes. There was actually a really great fight yesterday, and it was the North had set up, the goons had come in, and it was over an iHub, C2X, and the interesting thing is everything is right before downtime. So it's always alarm clocking, and just happened to wake up and see the big fight. So I went to check it out, and it was great because there was escalation from the north in the term of Haw Dreads, and then immediately, the goons answered that with an escalation of their own, supers and carriers. And this was about 5 to 10 minutes before downtime. So then downtime hit, and downtime tanking is a well-known, kind of EVE thing. So, when downtime hits, your ships are automatically taken out of space and you're fine. And then it's kind of who's going to log in or not. So
it's like a timeout.
After, yeah, exactly. So immediately after the goons logged in immediately, and a couple of random NC pilots logged in. I saw some interesting things from Pandemic Horde. They were bringing in smart bombing mocks, and it was a lot of fun. Not a lot was lost. It was like 25 bill to 25 bill, but it was a strategic point because C2X is a choke point right there in the middle of that region. So it was a lot of fun, and it was a lot of excitement between the two groups as well.
Yeah. We did contact both parties from the north and the south to see if they could come on and give us an update themselves. And they were unavailable because they're actually fighting this war at this very time. I think the last battle that just happened was a couple hours ago, or 3 hours ago.
It was even shorter than that, dude.
Was it?
Yeah, okay. It was like it pretty much almost finished about an hour, maybe about half hour before we were normally meant to go on.
Yeah, okay. So it was, I didn't know how long it had lasted. But yeah, so up to the minute, this stuff is happening now. It's happening on the weekends heavily. Let's check it out. It looks like Imperium is creeping ever inward into tribute. I did talk to somebody who's, I wouldn't call him an innocent bystander, but somebody who definitely doesn't want any part of this war, but is stuck in tribute with all these massive assets. And that is the EVE-Mogul Jeronica. Jeronica is somebody that really is a major industrialist, and that's his gameplay. But he has to work within the world as it is. And so at one point he was a part of Pandemic Legion, a distant part, so that they would protect his industrial base, and he would provide the industrial base for Pandemic Legions, but also for the public. So his stuff is all open. Later, he didn't like the instability of the situation that he had created with them, so he moved to have, who was it? It was Celine's alliance. Oh my God. Body Counts the Corp and Mercenary Coalition is the alliance. Thank you. So Mercenary Coalition protected his stuff in HiSec and also in the north, and so everything was still good. But again, he didn't want to be affiliated necessarily with any group. He just wants to be an industrialist on a massive scale. But again, there's political pressure everywhere and military pressure. So because his stuff was all in MTAC-O and all around the north, it was subject to being attacked during this war, and it's not being defended because NC or PL don't see that it belongs to them. And even though he was in negotiations to try to save it from the Imperium, it looks like his stuff is being destroyed because the Imperium is not interested in. Really, they're just interested in destroying as much as possible, and a lot of his stuff, even though it's not really Northern Coalitions or PLs, is just in the way, and it's very unfortunate.
They kind of see it as like, if you're operating out of MTAC-O, operating out of a Sovereign Alliance's space, like you've picked your side.
I think that they would be safe to argue that people that during World War B or whatever you want to call it, nobody was considerate of the innocent bystanders that just happened to be working with goons.
That's true as well.
I think that's true, but I think that's not a. How do you? Well, there is no problem here. This is a immersive and emergent gameplay situation, right? So things are just what they are, and you can't.
I'm just saying, good for the goose, good for the gander, right?
Well, no, but that's the thing. We're not talking about the livestock here. We're talking about somebody stuck in the middle. It's more his plight that I'm interested in, rather than the plight of they would do it to our guys that were leaning towards the Imperium. It's not really about what the Imperium would do or wouldn't do, or what the North would do or wouldn't do. It's more about the situation these guys find themselves in, where if you want to be a big time industrialist, you have to ally with some stable power. And when that power isn't stable, you're dead. And that's just pretty sad. I guess if you're the industrialist, that's pretty sad because you put a lot of work into that, right?
I think also, isn't he wearing the Pandemic Legion tags on his character? I think I completely understand, and he's a nice guy. And he also sponsored, I think it was one or two of our first shows. Very nice guy. But it's kind of, if you're wearing the tags, right? Like that's, maybe something he could do is, rebrand himself and not wear those tags and maybe work out some deal or something. But because those deals have existed in the past, and he could do something like that. But when you're wearing the tags, people are going to come shooting.
Well, that was one of the reason I sympathize. I consider him an interesting player because he plays differently than a lot of people. He's an industrialist, not just a trader. So he's not making money on the market. He's making money in multiple different ways. He's providing tools for players through EVE-Mogul. It's good stuff because he's a good developer. So I think he's a very interesting guy. But when you get into a war zone like that, and I have this from personal experience, I was able to diplomatically leverage my position to say, hey, don't kill the stuff that I own. It's very expensive, and let me take it down, and we can work something out or whatever. And I was able to get it out, but that's not always the case. And in his case, his leverage, he didn't have any leverage with the Imperium that I know of, but he could simply say, look, I'm just going to close it. Nobody can park there. I just want to stay out of this war. Now, I think this is what he did. He basically cut access for everybody, the North or the invading powers, to try to, turtle up and let this war kind of wash over him and stuff like that. But I think that, when people talk about PL kind of overfishing Brave and kind of destroying just destroying kind of the stuff that's interesting, but doesn't, just because they want to destroy. I mean, the power to want to destroy in this game is so strong that it just overcomes like any interesting nuance that the game could produce. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, but the only problem with that is that the goons are up there. It's a punitive expedition, and they don't want to give the North any help in rebuilding. And they know if they let Joranica go ahead and just sit out, be neutral, the infrastructure will still be there to help them to rebuild. And that's like against the Imperium's strategic objectives.
Right. The whole idea. That's a very good point. And I think those are very good industrial bases too, because they probably have T2 rigs in them and stuff like that. So if the idea is to not only destroy the North's infrastructure for building, which I think it is, I would imagine that strategically you can't leave stuff there because it has to open for business afterwards. It's going to have to open to whoever's there. Well, maybe it's not the North anymore if the North doesn't actually fend off this attack. Who knows?
Well, the North still built some, it's a case of, if it's still the structures that they built, right?
I still stand by the idea that not everybody that was involved in like the building of the Titans and stuff, when we went and killed 70 Titans that were in construction during World War B, like not everybody in there was completely associated with goons. There's neutral industrialists that were working as part of that program, and they got fried too. So I don't see that they would have any reason to have any mercy.
Yeah, I know. And that's kind of Eve, right? Like you want to just destroy everything in your path because it feeds your guys. They get kill boards. It's like their leaderboard goes up, their motivation goes up, et cetera, et cetera. But I think if you look in real life history, there's examples of co-opting rather than destroying. And it's more interesting, I think. But who knows? But anyway, so that's... Ron, is that kind of what's going on in the North?
Yeah, that's the kind of the gist of it. And, and it's still, you have the battle of the two narratives, which I love reading that kind of stuff. I personally feel that, whatever narrative you need to, say for your team, for them to keep logging in, to keep having fun, to keep providing content for each other, more power to you. So, as the Imperium kind of sweeps north, you guys don't fight, and then the North is like, well, look down south, we're killing everything we see. So, it's a tit for tat kind of thing, and but overall, everyone that I've talked to is just having a good time with it, right? Whereas sometimes they fight and sometimes they don't. Everyone's having a good time, and the numbers are high. With Pandemic Horde now staging out of SH1 closer to the fight, I see a lot more Pandemic Horde fleets. I see a lot more participation from NC. I see a lot of exciting things kind of brewing up there. And tonight we have I think it's in 14ish hours, we have the MTAC-O Keepstar coming out, which is Pandemic Legion headquarters, the capital,
yeah.
right? Yeah. So that's going to be big. I don't think it'll be contested, but maybe. That's coming out tonight. But that pretty much sums up the North so far.
Yeah, I think that was their headquarters. I think they've abandoned it though, haven't they? Piled into SH1 like everybody else in the North, or?
Yeah, when I say capital, I mean like selecting it in SOV.
Oh, yeah.
So if you click it, at the top left, it'll say Capital Pandemic Legion. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, MTAC-Go. So that's an entry system from the Forge. So is it from the Forge? No, from Lone Track.
It's
So
one
it's from Lone
jump
Track,
freighter
yeah.
out of Jita.
yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. It's a great headquarters. And it is definitely coming under fire. And that's actually where EVE-Mogul has a giant CTO and stuff like that. So that's where we're talking about.
I linked it and showed it on stream. Just slightly. Anyway.
So what's going on then in your neck of the woods, Ron?
Yeah, so down south has been, a very crazy week for us. It's been a lot of fun. We've, been hit by Bomber's Bar 3 or 4, maybe 5 times now. Pandemic Horde sends Goku fleets down, hitting us. It's, the guys are loving it. And the Citadel kind of warfare continues. I don't know how many we have, but it's 40, 50, or 60 citadels in winter code territory, and using those to kind of jump from and jump to, and then also every time you see a Fortizar, that's a possible dread bomb, right? You could just draw a circle around that in the jump range and say, okay, this is a possible dread bomb. We just had a fight this morning. And we outformed them, so they didn't fight. Completely understandable. We had a big fight. I think it was last Monday, and it was about 1,000 versus 1,000, but neither one of us wanted to jump in to that shred wagon. So, been having lots of great fights. Lots of, and you're starting to see more capitals from Legacy, which is interesting. Not as many capitals from Winterco, but Winterco does use their dreads very effectively. Elo is there, and Elo. I don't think he sleeps, but I'm not sure if that's biologically
I think
possible.
they're like 5 Elos, right? Like there's Elo minor, Elo major, and they just all rotate the clock. I think he's more than one guy.
It's yeah, and the kind of joke is Elo missed work running maneuvers, so he's out and about. Like, so it's been a lot of fun, and everyone's been enjoying it as well.
Right. Well, we'll look for some stuff to heat up over there. I've been hearing. Last night I went to the LA meetup with Dunk and Lank, and it was neat. And he was saying how there's like Russians will put out a lone carrier, and they'll be like, that's bait, let's take the bait. And so they jump on it, and then it does escalate 3 or 4 different times until you have multiple dread bombs fighting it out, and just how that stuff is erupting all over the place in the south. It's pretty neat. Okay, and there was something there was a test guy that got blown up at a Titan, and he had all his blueprints in there, and that looked pretty painful.
Yeah, I looked at his kill board, and it was a former darkness, because every time I see, a test super die in low sec, why would anyone go to low sec unless they're moving, they've left, or they've been AFK, or for whatever reason. So I was looking, and it was a former darkness player. So maybe that was a defection, and they were trying to move it over, and got snagged, right, by the whole kind of low sec crew. And then I was looking at there was another super a couple of days ago that also died in low sec, and they were a former darkness player. So maybe it's a couple of senior darkness people that are kind of jumping ship or something and trying to whittle their way down, which is like shark infested waters. I mean, the low sec is just ugh.
Yeah, and I think, and that makes sense. It looked like it was a moving ship. It had all its stuff with it. Also, it looks like what's going on with Snuff and the Imperium? Didn't Snuff take down an Imperium Titan? Anyone see that?
There has been a few things. Yeah, there has been a few things. Like, I think Snuff took down an Imperium Titan, but Like kind of recently, Goonswarm took down 2 Snuff Nixes fairly recently as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Because somebody made the joke that Imperium has killed more supers from Snuff than the North, which is kind of funny. I mean, well, yeah, of course, because the North isn't being picked off right now, but it does. I think that cuts both ways, basically.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Ron. Were you going to say something?
Oh yeah, no, I was actually just going to mention that you know, the goons just killed a couple of Snuff supers, and you know, and then I think it was Snuff. Did Snuff kill something of their own, or it was a tower or some other stuff? It was.
Oh no, that was just
Snuff's,
them.
Worst enemy is snuffed, right?
That was just them being them. It was a weird thing.
It's like.
So yeah, Snuff for some reason somehow anchored a tower in abyssal space. And
yeah.
I don't know if anybody's ever figured out how they managed to do that yet. I mean, I guess you could theoretically have enough time for the timer, but there's no moon to anchor it on.
Yeah, I reached out to try and get some clarification. I've yet to hear back from people about that. But yeah, there's Snuff have been doing some interesting stuff regarding that. Like, there was also another kind of crazy thing that one Snuff pilot did that I was kind of working out. Oh shit. So there's basically another kind of another thing that Snuff has did that was kind of cool. He probably got the most kill mails from a single bomb in the game. Like they probably like there's a Snuff pilot that has probably got the most kill mails from a single electron bomb as well. About 20 to 21,000.
Yikes.
If you can believe that.
I can believe it. So I put that into and we'll put it in the show notes, the Titan that was killed. It was killed by Snuffed and Pandemic Legion and Origin. And it belonged to TNT. So that's what I was thinking of. And that was killed in Delve, and that was just a few hours ago, I think. So anyway, yeah, interesting stuff going on.
Speaking of interesting kills, 3 Test supers died this week to Test's ultimate enemy, Test. And
wow.
And the first 2 were confirmed botters. So
wow.
you know, the order was given, and both of those supers died. And then the third super, I actually got to be a part of that one, which was really interesting. You know, because your overview, right, is set, and I had to, you know, switch over to the friendly overview. And the third, we don't know exactly what he was doing, but you know, he was doing a lot of things that you know, are against the alliance. So we AWOX'd him as well. So yeah, 3 supers down.
Well,
I'm just trying to find them. Oh yeah, I found them now.
All right. So that's the war front, and now we want to move on to. Should we talk invasions? Let's do that, and we'll just do CSM last if that's okay. CSM will be what we end on. How's that?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, and this is good because I want to get Torvald involved. It's kind of funny. People in comments are saying, like, that's the longest I've seen Torvald sit there without talking.
Yeah, I have the ability to go on and on.
No, I just I just hate like people sitting idle, you know, visually on the show, and especially as someone who's a streamer who definitely has to keep it going all the time. But tell us first, before we get going, let's find out more about you, Torvald. Why don't you tell the audience like who you are and what you're about?
All right. Well, I'm Torvald. I've been playing EVE for like 10 years now this September, but I started streaming back in January or February. So I went to EVE Vegas 2018, my first EVE event ever, and that's where I saw the streaming presentation. And ever since then, I was like, you know what? I want to try that. You know, I was always afraid to stream. Then I saw Raid and Miss Moses get up there and talk about it, and after hearing them talk about the community and the way like streaming works in EVE, I was like, you know what? I'm going to try that. Because I always thought streaming was this like cutthroat world where everyone wants their own viewers and it's, you know, this toxic environment. And then I saw them and I started doing it. And ever since the Abyss came out, I've been obsessed with that, and specifically Abyssal PvP. You've got the proving conduits that spawn, throws you into the proving grounds, 1v1, 1v1 action where two people fight to the death, and yes, that's what I've been doing for the past couple months. I've had a lot of crazy experiences in there, and having a lot of fun with it too.
That's right. The one-on-one PvP matches. We heard they were being dominated by just a few people, and then I hadn't heard much after that.
Oh yeah, man, it's crazy. There's actually a site where you can go, and it kind of gives the the breakdown of everyone who does it. And there's a couple guys that they reign supreme in there. And I've definitely met my end to them. But if you in Z-Kill, if you go up to and you click on Abyssal PvP, that's where you'll see all the action, and it's really cool. Like just going in there and seeing like what takes on what and the value of some of these. I mean, you got everything in there from like there's a hero in my channel, Gator Grips. He started flying this caracal, and he's got this little 30 million-ish caracal that he goes around and kills 1 billion-ish ships. And then you got people flying like 7 billion-ish cruisers, and now recently the Iki Tursa has just been like completely dominating because of how amazing that ship is.
So it has lived up to the hype, because I remember before the Iki was released, everyone was like, oh, this thing is going to dominate in PvP. Nothing's going to beat it. So did it live up to that hype?
Oh, God, yeah. So I've been flying it. Someone donated me an Iki Tursa, and I've been, like I said before it came live, I was like, I'm going to live in this ship. But I think I've seen 2 Iki Tursas die, and both times have been to a curse. Other than that, the only time an Iki Tursa dies is if it's at the end of another Iki Tursa. It's an insane ship, man. It's damage capabilities, it's tank, it's cat, everything about it, man. It's up there.
you had an insane fight, didn't you? With a like in your Iki Tursa against another Iki Tursa, right? And like then came out of the abyssal space, and then ended up getting. I mean, I hate to bring it up, but it was an amazing bit. Amazing bit of streaming.
I'll give you all a little bit of insight. The weakness to an Iki Tursa is about 8 tornadoes, if you were wondering. Oh man, I had an incredible fight, dude. And if you watch the fight between my Iki Tursa and the other Iki Tursa, actually that was right after y'all raided me. That's right, you guys came in at the very end of that. Which thank you for that, by the way. Right after this fight, man, I mean, you may not be able to see it, but like during the fight, I was shaking. Like you get those PvP shakes, if you haven't had those in a while, when you get them, it's like, whoa, what the hell? And I had the shakes, and I won the fight, got some incredible loot. It's like, all right, guys, we're safe, we're out of here. And then came out, and boom, there was a couple tornadoes. TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah, he made sure I paid for that fight. It was a lot
terrifies
of fun.
me. Like I wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat with the sound of tornadoes firing.
Oh, if anyone says high sec is not safe, and if anyone says high sec is safe, they are 100% wrong.
Ash, you had a close call this morning just before the show. It's one of the reasons that we're on a bit late. What happened?
Oh gosh. So I'm just roaming around in my Iki Tursa doing the invasions, because I just got my skin finally after a week of grinding, and so I just wanted to show it off. And I just like double click to fly past the Tatara that we're using to tether on, and then both my mouse and keyboard died. And so I got to watch my Iki Tursa just drift out of range, and then all of the rats start engaging it, and like I had one repper on. And so I'm just like, oh my God. And I'm watching my Iki die, and I finally have to pull the plug and be like, I hope you live. And then I come back, I'm alive, and one of my buddies is on the grid taking care of them. And I'm like, you are the best. Because I couldn't tell anybody. I couldn't warn anybody. I couldn't tell anybody. Like, I'm just like, oh my God. I've never panicked so hard.
Dude, Bob smiled on you. That is a close call.
Well, I was there thinking about it. I'm like, well, there's no anchoring. So if I pull the plug, I should be able to warp, right? Right?
Okay, you should e-warp, hopefully.
Yeah, the answer was yes.
No, they changed that. They changed that, right? Because people were doing that to avoid fights. And I don't remember the order, but the safety kind of log off, and then the timer, the long timer, and yeah.
Well,
Maybe
the good news is that they're rats, so there was no weapon timer.
Yeah, that might be the difference. If you're in a PvP combat, you can't just turn off the computer, but if you're fighting the environment, you might be able to.
Were those invasion rats or?
It was invasion rats, and for the record, they're actually plugged in. I had to reboot my entire computer because all my USBs died. It was terrifying.
You are extremely lucky. There's not an anchoring on field.
Well, that's the thing, though, and we'll get into this later, probably, but since week 2 of Invasion, they significantly changed it. I haven't seen a single roaming anchoring. I haven't seen a single Leshak of any kind, and I haven't seen a single Zoria since Tuesday.
Interesting.
Yeah, they significantly weakened the rats in the foothold as soon as they went into phase 1.
So
I call week 1 phase 0 now.
I messed you up. Can you say that again?
Oh, I said we used to call week 1 phase 1, but now that we've kind of seeing how things play out, I've started calling week 1 phase 0 because there was no sites, and so now we're in phase 1, and then hopefully next Tuesday begins phase 2.
All right, so let's take a step back and take us through this invasion, this invasion expansion that hit. What's it look like a week later?
Yeah, so unlike other expansions, there's kind of 2 things that make this sort of unique. One, they're not telling us anything ahead of time. Very little is on Singularity ahead of time. And so we really don't know the full scope of what this is going to be like until it rolls out. Additionally, the entire expansion is named Invasions Chapter 1. So like where this is going to lead past even this expansion is still pretty unknown. And Hilmar and others have said that this is exactly what they want. This is what EVE is supposed to be going back to, this idea of mystery, etc. That being said, week 0, we saw the beginning of the invasions in which sites will appear. There is the foothold site, which seems to be like the anchoring site where the World Ark will eventually spawn. And then one jump away from that, you would have the adjacent sites. And then another jump away from that, you'll have the perimeter sites. And while the footholds must spawn in high sec, the other sites can extend out into low sec or null sec if that's the way it works. So in these areas, you have wandering groups of rats, about 10 to 15 of them at a time. Most of them are frigates and destroyers and cruisers at this point. But like I said before, last week we had battleships and a named battleship named Zoria's Leshak.
Really?
Yes. So Zoria's Leshak was a pretty bad dude, and was the original source for all of the skill books and the data cores. Like they could all drop them, but Zoria was like the loot prize, right? So now we have no Zorias, but we have these new conduit sites. So we have the minor conduit, which is 1 tier out of 3 tiers. It's designed for 1 to 3 players, but it is pretty rough when it comes to DPS. It takes like a good Abyssal Gila or something of that caliber, or like a battle cruiser or a battleship that's tanked correctly. We were playing with it in Marauders just because it was fun. But there's 3 waves of rats in these sites. They spawn very slowly. So there's only like 4 or 5 of them up at any given time, but most of them are sealed. So like at any time, there's only 1 to run, or you have to actually wait between them. I suspect this is because of the fact that there's still 2 more levels of sites that just aren't spawning, and so like only 1 of the third of the sites are spawning. But it is quite a bit of a wait in between spawns at the moment.
Oh.
So
right, let me cut in there and interrupt you. I just want to make one clarification so that we all get this straight. And this is from Harvey Skywalker, friend of our show. He says, you E-warp if you're not tackled, whether it's PvP or not. There's no PvP timer involved. So if you're tackled, you're not going anywhere. But other than that, you will.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and like I said, so there are scrambling rats. They're called anchoring. I just haven't happened to see I haven't seen any of them in the wandering groups. Yeah. So, and that's the ones that you'll see on the gates and etc. They can go to any celestial, they can go to any structure, etc.
Yeah, these are just like the rats that you see in the Abyss, all the same anchoring tanglings. The only new ones we see now are the liminals, and they are the ones, I'm pretty sure they have a couple. They're just more they're more tanky and deal more damage. But other than that, yeah, same tanglings, webbings, blindings, all that. And then of course the Zorias.
So the liminals, they changed the liminals in week 2. The liminals now have a missile launcher as well as their disintegrator, and the missile launcher fires a special missile that does EM therm damage, which basically means that the liminals are firing at the hole from the other damage. So the primary damage is explosive. No, sorry, you're right. It's EM kinetic. Sorry. So the main is explosive thermal with a leaning towards explosive, and then the liminals also add in their EM kinetic damage from their missiles. So you kind of have to be ready to tank all of them, but primarily, of course, explosive thermal.
Just a question. When you go into these sites, do they have the environmental effects like they do in the abyssal sites themselves, or is it because it's in K-space, it's like K-space rules?
There's an effect in every abyssal system, just like an invasion or like an incursion system. The penalties are the changes, because they're not all penalties. They make ships more agile. They make drones do less damage. They slow down drones and they reduce hull. And they also, and this is interesting, reduce mining cycle times, which actually makes mining faster, which leads into the other interesting thing about these conduits, which is after you complete them, after 3 waves of these rats, then the conduit changes from being a miner conduit to a sealed miner conduit, and it stays active in space. And basically around where this where the conduit opens, there's this giant triangle-shaped cluster of rocks that looks very similar to the end of the Triglavian video that we got right before this Tuesday. And those rocks are mineable, and they're a new ore. Right now we have talisonite, which is only slightly better than other, like just standard belt ore. All 3 of these things say that they're modified scordite. So most of the miners that I've been told have looked at it and calculated it and said that it's probably not worth it. Although I question how many of those people have also factored in the mining bonus. But either way, the next 2 tiers of ore are particularly interesting because they contain morphite, which is normally extraordinarily difficult to get in high sec. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when we get the 2nd and 3rd tier, and whether or not they operate the same way. Because once they're sealed, they're relatively safe. No more Triglavian rats will ever go to a sealed conduit, not even the roaming ones. So as of right now, it's perfectly safe to mine within one of these conduits, sealed conduits.
So how does that play out? Somebody comes in, clears out the rats, and then there's a mining field that can be taken advantage of?
Correct. Like I said, it's basically a giant triangle of rocks. And then in the middle of it, this conduit opens. And from the middle of the conduit, 3 waves of rats, about 10 to 15 of them, spawn with various different E-War effects and all that stuff, just like a normal like trig wave in like the Abyss or something like that. Most of them are frigates and destroyers with some battle cruisers and cruisers. But again, this is the miner site. These are designed for 1 to 3 players. So, right now they're so overfarmed because there's so few of them that you're almost never in them with so few players. So it's really difficult to suss out exactly how these things are going to play out in long term. And it'll be interesting to see where the 2nd and 3rd tier sites go.
So it's basically, and since we got 2 experts here, so basically it sounds like if I took my tier 3 vagabond, went into there, cleared out some rats, maybe I need to bump it up a little bit, and then I can come in with my procurer or with my skiff, and then just clean it out and not have any problems.
Yeah, you could. You probably wouldn't even run out. You'd probably run out of time and interest before you ran out of rocks, to be totally honest.
Let me get Torvald in here, if you don't mind. Like, I want to hear more from Torvald's perspective, if he's been doing the same thing.
So what we've noticed with the invasions, and if you go to these systems, you'll see that there's some kind of weird effect happening around structures. It's like the Triglavians are like scanning down structures, And we've also got this new material used to create the tier 2 of the Triglavian ships. So kind of wondering if we're going to see some kind of like, we're already seeing these new ores coming up from these sites that Ash was just talking about. I'm kind of curious as whether or not we're going to see like some kind of like, maybe not moon, but some kind of new ore. So as y'all know, T2 ships are made from moon mining production. So you mine moons, you get the moon goo from them. You get this new, you get the materials from the moon goo, and that's what's used to basically through reactions used to produce stuff to make tier 2 ships. If you look at any tier 2 ship, you'll notice all the materials there are produced from moon goo reactions. So I'm kind of curious whether it's building up to that, because we've already seen this new ore. So maybe we're going to see some new new reactions possibly to make this stuff. Because right now the only way to obtain the materials to build the T2 ships is through salvaging these sites. So kind of curious to see that now that we've already seen these 3 ores already added. And this is still what we know. So the scout fleets will, consider them phase 0 and this site's phase 1. So, some people have been throwing around the idea of possibly the Triglavians are looking at these structures that we capsuleers use, the structures that we have all over the place, since they're scanning them down, if they're looking at, possibly doing something with those.
Yeah, the lore pieces that we're getting is stuff about like threat assessments. There is some things about Triglavians raiding various buildings or planets. So they are, if they are leading up to the Triglavians taking action against these structures, they're definitely hinting towards it, if that makes sense. So I can't guarantee that those sorts of things are going to happen, but if they happen, it will be foreshadowed.
Wild.
But I do want to clarify kind of what Torvald was saying. All of the rats in these area will have a chance to drop some loot, including the data cores that are used to do the invention, and as well as the skill books to learn to do the invention. But also, all of them can be salvaged, and that salvage, at least at the moment, is the lion's share of the worth of even the sites. This salvage has actually retained its value very, very well so far, in part because as more people are able to do the inventions, what happened was they actually, this week, we also got the LP store because we're finally able to get LP because you get them for running the sites. Well, in the LP store, you get the data cores and the skill books. So unlike last week where we had to wait for lucky drops, and so a data core, a single data core could be upwards of 400 million. Now it's 1,000 LP, 100 or a million ISK and some data sheets. So it's not much.
So CCP is ramping up supply, because one of the things I've heard was really hard to get enough to build these T2 ships initially.
Right. So what's interesting though is that as more people are able to invent it, the cost or the value of the salvage has actually gone up and then stabilized because more people are able to construct. There's actually a higher demand on the salvage now than there was even last week.
All right. So Torvald, is this what you've been streaming in the last few weeks?
Actually, no. So we did during this when CCP did the kind of streamathon thing, we did a couple big public fleets. We passed it around a little bit. I've still been doing the Abyssal PvP. So the thing about these new invasion sites, since we're still in the beginning stages right now, they're only geared. A lot of people have been running them with big fleets, but they're geared towards kind of smaller, like I think Ash hit it on a little bit, less than 5 people. So yeah, I've not actually been streaming much of it. There's a couple guys who have been streaming quite a bit of it. There's a couple of challenges that come with the invasion sites, especially if you do them in larger groups. I mean, you've got ninja salvagers that are kind of like hindering it a little bit. We've seen a little bit of that. And then
We've seen a lot of that.
Yeah, a lot of ninja salvaging, and that's where the income is with these sites. So we got the phase 0, or we got phase 1. It looks like we're getting 1 phase a week, and then it's kind of cool because it's like building into Eve North, the meeting in Toronto. So I'm kind of excited to see where it goes from there. yeah, right now the stuff isn't crazy lucrative. People have been pulling out a lot of money, and it's cool to see the losses. It's really cool to see the losses coming out of these invasion sites. I mean, I remember someone linked me a kill board of nothing but marauders, and yeah, these Triglavians have really been putting a hurting on some capsuleers.
Good.
Yeah, that's what we get when we don't have stuff to test. And I kind of like that CCP is kind of throwing us this new thing, and they've really one of the things I really love about this is the whole drone thing. I mean, they basically said, hey, we want drones to not, and kind of a joke that I made before is like, the Triglavians have been getting their asses kicked by Gilas for months. Gilas have been reigning supreme in the abyss. So the Triglavians came out of there and said, all right, we're gonna shut down these drones and make these guys use something else. So yeah, it's really cool that we've been given this. I mean, some people don't like the content, but you know what? It's something new. If you do it correctly, if you do it with, well, whether you do it with like small fleets or a large group, I mean, this is new PvE, and maybe it's not the best is per hour, but it's entertaining. You're getting a good fleet with people, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, some of the best times I had. Hold on, Ash. Some of the best times I've had in EVE Online, for perspective from people who are watching the show or listening to it, some of the best times have been with strangers in EVE Online. So you get the chance of meeting new people, and it's just it's kind of neat. It's like extra bonus to doing the content you're doing with people you don't know. So you get to meet new people, possible new friends, that kind of stuff. All right, Ash.
I was just going to clarify our group, which is like a 5-6 man team at most, has pulled 2 billion out of these sites every day for the last 2 or 3 days. And that's not including the DED reward. That's not including the ISK reward that they give for closing sites. That's just out of salvage.
Yeah. So
the ISK is definitely there. The ISK is definitely there. And as these things become less crowded, it's going to be a lot better because a single site, which again is 3 waves, so not that long. A single site, if you have less than 3 people, will be 15 million ISK and 1,000 LP. So this is not, and this is the smallest of the sites. So this is nothing to sneeze at.
All right. Hey, Torvald, this is just a transition, but I kind of mean it. Like, when are you going to run for CSM? Because you seem to be very popular with our fan base. So,
man, if I didn't have the real life restrictions I had, I would love to. And I'm guessing we're getting into the CSM thing, but man, one thing I would love to run for CSM for is faction warfare. If I ever, that's one thing, faction warfare low sec. If I ever ran, that would be my area, because that's in my opinion, that is the greatest source of content in this game. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm excited to see all of the CSM candidates that are coming out this year. It seems like there's a lot of people coming up from for low sec and faction warfare type areas, and it's kind of cool to see that, because I mean, I didn't pay much attention last year, I'm going to be honest, but yeah, I've been paying more attention this year because we want to get that attention to these other areas of the game. And so yeah, if I could run, I would definitely run. That's for sure.
For faction warfare.
Has there ever been an active duty CSM member?
They've run every year, I think, for the last 4 years that I can remember. But Noizy Gamer is somebody who watches this kind of stuff, and maybe he can help us out. I'm not sure.
I don't think that anybody's actually been active duty while being on CSM. I think the closest we've gotten is Vile Rat, who was with the State Department, getting shelled when he was in the green zone.
No, not in real life.
In the green zone.
Not in real life. We're talking about in the game.
No, I'm talking about in real life.
Yeah, he was talking about real life. Yeah.
Yeah. So Torvald is active duty military.
Yeah, that's why. That's what it caused me to ask the question. Yeah,
that's one of those. Whenever CSM came up, the idea of CSM, I thought, you know what, I would love to run, but then the scheduled stuff would be okay. I mean, we have to deal with deployments. We have those every 6 months we have to go with, and then it'd be the seat or the surprise summits that active duty. It's kind of hard. Most of us active duty members, we have to really kind of fight and claw ourselves, claw at a chance to leave. So to be able to just, pack up and go to Iceland. I mean, especially to go to another country, we've got to do security briefings and go through this whole, parade of crap. So yeah, it is really hard for active duty members to do this. I thought about it long and hard, and I started filling out the application, started getting my passport info, and
Wow.
I thought, you know what? If I get put on a deployment, or if I have to go to Iceland and I only have like a week notice, like I can't do that. And yeah, Vile Rat, he was active. He was Air Force actually. I believe he did 6 years in the Air Force.
Yeah, the only thing is I don't know if he was active. I don't think he was still in the Air Force when he was on CSM. I think he'd gone to the State Department, but I think he may have been in Iraq. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he wasn't when he was CSM. He wasn't in the Air Force. He did work. He was a contractor. That's right.
Well, I'm sorry for the confusion. I thought that we were talking about faction war. That's why I took a new character.
Oh, Matterall.
Faction warfare, but not that.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, but let's move over to, we are on the eve of...
There's one more thing about invasions that I would like to point out, because it's what I get asked a lot, which is about the pacing.
I've only been asking in channel. Like 5 times. Is there anything else on this topic? And you got to watch that channel. But okay, go ahead.
I am. That's how I knew to come in. Anyway, whatever. Okay, so the big thing is that the rollout has been staged, and the first thing is that that's planned. A lot of people have kind of been complaining about that. Part of it is because of the fact that due to the mystery, they couldn't test it. So there is a certain amount of like wanting to test it, roll it out in stages, so that way each stage is done correctly before the next stage comes out. But it seems to be that the pace is going to be roughly once a week. So every Tuesday we should get the next stage, because it was exactly 1 week between stage 0 and stage 1. So if you're not wanting to deal with the waiting for sites, if you think that it's not quite done yet and you want to do a feature when it's finished, you can wait about 2 weeks, and hopefully we'll see the world arc by then.
All right. Also, rest in peace to Vile Rat. I want to make sure that's clear. It's a very tragic situation where he's in Benghazi. It's very well known for a lot of EVE players, and it's a terrible tragedy. So we'll just make sure that gets out there as well. Okay, and with that, we will transition over to our last topic for the day, which is a CSM, Council of Stellar Management. We are on the eve of voting, which starts tomorrow and goes for 7 days. And at the end of those 7 days, CCP will take some time to compile the winners and make an announcement at EVE North, which is happening on the, am I right about the 20th or 21st?
It begins on the 21st, and a bunch of people are going to be showing up on the Thursday, the 20th.
20th, right. And that's where the announcements of the winners for this year will be. And I think it's an interesting year to be running. I myself am running, and so are a lot of people that you have heard of, and also a lot of people that you heard of locally rather than just globally on EVE Online. So what do you guys think about the CSM? I want to start with Noizy about CSM. What are your thoughts on this year compared to other years?
Well, this is going to be interesting. This is the second year of only 10 candidates running a single transferable vote, which means that you basically, in order to win, you need to realistically get like 2,000 votes total, and probably start off, unless you're number 2 or number 3 on the Goon ballot, on the Imperium ballot. You basically need to have about 1,000 people to vote for you in the first position right off the bat. That's basically what you need to do in order to have a realistic chance to win. The way that Billy was talking, and with Gobbins running, there may be a push in both Horde and in Test to increase turnout from both organizations. And since those are two of the very biggest organizations, we could see a larger turnout than last year. If that's the case, then if those two organizations come out and actually push the turnout, then the Imperium number 4 candidate will probably not win. I haven't seen the Goon ballot. That's not going to be announced till tomorrow, according to the Matani. And so we got to see who the number 4 is. If the number 4 is like a really popular person and who doesn't need a lot of votes, then they'll win. If it's somebody that needs a lot of help, then they're not going to win. So I'm guessing 6 to 8 from the 3 major blocks: Imperium, Legacy, and PanFam. And possibly it's from just listening to all the interviews, it seems that everybody, all the high sec people are including Steve Renukin. So if you do that, you basically can count on maybe him winning a seat, depending on the turnout from nullsec. And then lowsec is very interesting because there's a lot of people saying that they represent lowsec, but like only one person really actually lives in lowsec.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for Noizy, since you pay attention to all this stuff, and you were talking about the Goon's fourth slot and whether or not the Goon's fourth slot or the Imperium's fourth slot would get in. So here's a question, and you hopefully you have an answer for it. But one of the things about this is that the CSM almost becomes a show of force for these null blocks. And when a lot of people get voted in on a certain block, that block likes to gloat about how many people they had the power to bring in. So do you think that this is going to modify the ballot of the Imperium, where they're going to maybe pick a more secured candidate for their 4th position, so that way they can say that they got 4 people elected? Or do you think that they're going to just let somebody sacrifice?
I think that over the last 2-3 years that the Goon Swarm leadership has said, we're not playing any games. We want to get 2 people on. If we get 3 people on, great. If we get 4 people on, oh my gosh, it's like whatever. A couple years ago, the Goon campaign team, I'm saying Goon because I think it was from Goon Swarm, they actually only put 6 people on their official ballot because they had figured out that the 7, 8, 9, and 10 slots were worthless. And when you went back and looked at the election, you saw that their trickle stopped at the number 6 slot. So the Goon Swarm election team is very, very good at what they do. And so they're very good at get out the vote. They are very good at knowing, being able to judge things. So I think at this point, it's just like, hey, we just want this representation. And as long as we get our representation, what we want, then we're good. And having Brisk last year emerge out of practically nowhere on the CSM scene, that was just icing on the cake.
I see. How does this year then compare to years before? You're saying there could be a higher turnout than in previous years.
Yeah, it's been going up and down. Last year was 29,200, I think. The year before was like a little bit lower. 2 years ago was like 36,000. So it's been bumping up and down. And I'm kind of expecting between 30,000 and 35,000 votes this year. I just, maybe I'm being optimistic, but I think that with some of the pushes, announced pushes out of some nullsec groups that traditionally don't get on or don't get like multiple people on, that might just drive up the vote totals.
I also want to say that Test is vehemently going to break that curse this year. We've got there's going to be a lot more turnout just from us, just because Billy and everyone else. So I think you should see higher numbers, at least from our end, for sure.
Yeah, and the Test curse. It's maybe kind of hard to believe, but Test has never been able to get a candidate to win in CSM. The first year when everybody thought, oh, Test is getting somebody, Sort Dragon put himself in the number 1 spot, and everybody voted for him, and the number 2 guy that was in Test didn't win. That was interesting. And then last year, it looked like Test was going to break the curse, but then Creature got disqualified for some things that he had posted.
He got tripped in the finish line by PL.
Yeah, basically. So you've got that, and Legacy is like really weird because you have that history, and then you have the history of Brave. Anybody that the leadership of Brave has come out and said, hey, support this guy, every time that person's won.
Torvald?
So my question was, and Noizy, maybe you'd be the guy who would know this. Over the past couple of years, what has it been primarily like everyone's been? I know everyone claims they're campaigning for a certain area of nullsec, but over the past couple of years, has the entire CSM been full of nothing but people who had nullsec backings, or are there the occasional candidates who get elected that they are not a nullsec, they're not a blockade or a block member, and they get elected? Input on that.
The last couple of years, it's basically it's been a lot of nullsec block voting. Lowsec and wormholes haven't been able. Lowsec is just lowsec at this point. Wormholes haven't been able to work together. Well, last year they weren't able to work together. The Russian speakers and the non-Russian speakers, if they would have combined, they had a chance to actually get somebody on. So, and then of course you've got Steve Ronikin, who always wins, and he's basically high-sec-ish industrial third-party dev type. So he's got some backing, and I think he's got the backing of the industrialists in high-sec, and a lot of them have lots and lots of accounts to vote with.
Yeah, I wouldn't underestimate his goodwill in nullsec as well, because I think he does a lot of stuff on the code side of things for third-party apps that may benefit nullsec tech guys, and so that's always appreciated, that sort of a thing. I think people see him as a valuable in that translating what CCP puts out through their API to tools that they build. And so I don't know if he's elected because of his gameplay, more he's elected because of the goodwill he's got from his public tools that he puts together, if I'm analyzing that right.
Yeah, and for Steve, he doesn't get the block support. Forget everybody on Reddit who says, "Oh, Steve, he was on the Imperium ballot." He's last on the Imperium ballot. That means absolutely nothing. That's basically the Imperium election team trolling people.
Yeah. So I hope I don't appear on the Imperium ballot at number 8, 9, or 10, because then I'll know they're trolling.
I can say that Test has released their ballot. Matterall, you are not 8, 9, or 10. And Steve is number 8.
Yeah. Anyone now? Go ahead, Noizy.
I want to ask Ron, could you
go
over your ballot? Because I've got something that I got yesterday from the Meta Show, and I'm wondering if it's the same as what you've got.
Sure. I'll say it in order. Villy, Kornak, Dunkdinkle, Innominate, Killabee, Matterall, Gobbins, Steve Ronikin.
Yep, and that's what the Matani, or it was Vote or somebody said on the Meta Show yesterday.
Seems legit though.
So these ballots, we haven't seen, really, we've only seen Test, right?
I mean, I've heard something from Horde, but and Horde, if I recall right, it was Gobbins 1, Killabee number 2, and I can't remember the rest off the top of my head right now. But that sounds like that's if Horde votes the way that they have the ability to, then those two should get on, I would think. Just because one, goblins will get the big vote, and kill a bee is popular, not just in PanFam.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do you think of the way that this is? I'll just put this out to all you guys. What do you think about the representation that this system, the way we currently have it, and the interest that organizations from nullsec have in getting onto CSM? Because I used to dismiss it a long time ago. Then I guess they created the chairman position, and all of a sudden it's like, ooh, something to win. So what?
I have a question about the voting before I answer that question, which is that isn't there special rules this time about voting that's different than previous years?
Not that I'm aware of.
Like, you have to be an Omega for a certain period of time and not just be an Omega?
As far as I know, they haven't changed that.
Huh. I'll have to look into that.
I just posted the Horde ballot. I guess I'll post it here too.
I continue to be concerned about the switch from 13 to 10, because the issue is that we've always had this dominance of nullsec blocks, and it just seems like the smaller number of people, while it does mean that they can be flown out to Iceland, just means that there's less room for non-block candidates to carve out a niche.
I don't think it was a money-saving thing to reduce to 10. I think they really just want to reduce the voices.
Well, that's what they happened at the same time. They said they reduced it to 10, and then they made it so that everyone gets flown out instead of half.
Yeah. Well, I think that the other thing about that is that they wanted to actually bring everybody out, and before they reduced it down to 10, they actually flew 14 people out. And they realized that when they flew 14 people out, their rooms, their conference rooms, were not big enough to handle that.
Yeah, that's probably it. I think it's much more along. It's not about money for sure, but it's about how much can we actually take all at once in the facilities, or even just intellectually talking to people.
So it looks like both alphas and omegas are eligible to run, but your account must be. Oh no, that's to run. Hold on.
Yeah, you can be an alpha and run, but you can't be an alpha to vote, I believe.
I've always been curious about one of the things that always comes up in these talks with CSM. It seems to be, I mean, you guys are throwing it around now. I mean, you've got the big nullsec groups. Everyone has their list, and hopefully everyone sticks to who they're voting for and whatnot. But that's one of the things that's like outside of the nullsec groups. I've never really been in a nullsec group, so it's kind of like the talk seems to be, why vote, why participate, why care, when it doesn't really matter, when you've got coalitions all gunning for the same candidate. And that's kind of one of the things. And now granted, nullsec is like whatever percent of this game that's greater than wormhole, high sec, and low sec combined. That seems to be kind of one of the things that like everybody else has issues with, or kind of brings up whenever it comes up to CSM.
My concern with that is how much of that is actual just vote suppression, right? Because the more disorganized, the more defeated the non-block candidates are, the more powerful the block candidates are. And if there's anything that nullsec groups know how to do, is manipulate narrative to their advantage. So I'm not saying it's all that, but I would not be surprised if there weren't some actors that were stressing how powerful the null blocks are as a way of making sure that nobody else organizes against them effectively.
So go ahead, Noizy.
Yeah. In order for that vote suppression to actually be like a thing, you would have had to expect, you would have to be thinking that the voter suppression is affecting that you would have to be thinking that without this suppression, that the vote totals out of high sec and low sec and wormhole space would be 2 to 3 times higher than what they actually are.
Well, I'm not talking about like nailing everybody, but I'm talking about whether or not Goon Swarm gets their 4th spot, right? Like, you don't need that much in order to disrupt that. And the problem is that we're getting a lot of new players. So if the first thing you hear about the CSM is that the voting doesn't matter, then yeah, that's going to be a lot of votes that are not going to be cast that could have been cast.
Well, actually, for a lot of these players, the first time they hear about CSM is maybe somebody campaigning in Jita or in Dixie saying, "Hey, vote for me for CSM," and people saying, "What's CSM?"
Yeah, we've heard that. Okay, so what we try to do here at Talking in Stations for the last 3 years is interview as many candidates as possible from all strata of gameplay to make sure that they have a chance to have exposure to people who are at least listening to media, because a lot of people who listen to media about EVE Online tend to be looking for more knowledge, and they tend to be players on the advancement path, and they're engaged, and they're probably voters. So we've done what we could this year. McLeod has been essential. Artemis Alboso is in charge of the process for us, since I was recused and sidelined, and a lot of the guys from our crew were doing the interviews. McLeod, we just about wrapped all that up?
Pretty much, yeah. I believe I don't think there's any more that is coming through the pipeline as such. But we put in 20 interviews, so
we did 20 interviews, yeah, and there was also Jintan, who was doing some interviews of his own. I think he did a more select job and picked the people he wanted to talk to rather than opening it up to everyone.
Did you notice that Jintan got a shout out from the scope, by the way?
No, I didn't know that.
In the ticker, it says that Jintan was doing interviews for CSM 14 in the latest scope video, so it's canon.
Huh.
Oh, cool.
Interesting.
You made me lose my thought.
I'm sorry.
To be fair, considering it's just him doing it, he's done an absolute, like, a load of work to get that done.
Yeah, these things are not easy to do. It takes a lot of effort. So
yeah,
it's nice.
Jin has posted 12 interviews, and I think the last interview he posted, or next to last interview, I think the guy pulled out on him, so that was like some wasted effort, I think. But but between Jintan and Talking in Stations, there have been 31 interviews with candidates, and with 24 different candidates. So that's 24 out of the 44 candidates were interviewed. So I'm sorry, 20. Is it 23? It's 23. I'm sorry. So it's 23 out of the 44 candidates were interviewed. So between the two groups, you guys got more than half. So that's a pretty good showing.
Yeah, that's good. Some people won't interview because they don't need to, or don't feel they need to, or don't want to. And some people, I think we didn't get to one person, the judge. We didn't email him like we thought we had, but he was made aware of it, and we apologized and then invited him to contact us to get involved. So we'll see if there's some latecomers. But we wanted to get it all done, at least what we had kind of agreed on is to get all these done by now, so that people had the weekend to kind of listen to catch up, so that, by the time Monday comes around, everybody had plenty of time to listen to them. There wasn't an interview that was falling on Tuesday or Monday or whatever. So just to be fair to everybody.
And you only have 1 week to vote. It's a very short window, so don't procrastinate.
Right. Okay, and funny enough, there's a video out there. I think it's published now. It says why we can't vote for Matterall, and I recommend you guys watch it, because I was just watching it and I was like, yeah, I kind of agree with this guy, because he's talking about the system and how it's broken. And the only thing I would say about, wow, gift subs. Thank you, Amar. Thank you, Amar. And Hoffman X earlier did 10 gift subs to you guys. It's just awesome to see. That's basically saying, I like the show, and I'm going to give benefit to all the guys that are watching it here live. And I love that kind of stuff, because it's sharing the wealth. Thanks. But one of the things I guess I would part company with this video, we'll link it, yeah, is that that I'm seen as part of the problem when I feel like I'm the guy who's talking about the problem more than anybody else in it, which is okay. But the way that CSM is structured now, there's just some realities to it, that if you want to stand a chance, you have to do certain things. And that is what I admitted to and said, yeah, I've had to talk diplomatically with people to say, what's your ballot look like? And a lot of them have said, yeah, we like you, we'll put you on. Some people have said, well, we need to trade. And then there's other people that I've talked to privately. And when I say I call in favors, I'm not calling in favors to alliances. I'm calling in favors to friends who play the game and who have multiple accounts. So I'm actually doing retail politics and talking to people individually saying, can I count on you? So that's like door-to-door knocking. And so when I say I'm calling in favors, and favors to fans, right? Like you guys who are watching or you guys that are listening, I'm calling in favors to say, hey, can you guys vote for me? But I need you to put me at number 1 so that I can actually get enough to survive the initial rounds, because I do not have a block behind me. So it's interesting that the criticism is of the process, which I criticize as well, but I'm playing along with the process, and that opens me up to criticism, which is totally fair. And that's why I kind of agree with this video that we just posted.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the premise of the video. Like, the things that he's saying are definitely problems, but the idea that you're the only one that's doing this strategy against those problems, I feel is extremely dishonest. I mean, whatever you want to say about Steve Ronikin and who's supporting him or not, pretty much everybody who gets on the CSM at least has some sort of backing outside of, just everybody who feels like it's a good idea, right? Like going to organizations and asking them, hey, can you also ask your people to vote for me? Like, that's nothing new. And additionally, the other point is that this idea that it's like, it's not the same as politicians taking in money, right? Just because a bloc has voted for you, I think we've demonstrated this time and time again, that doesn't mean anything about your loyalty to them through the process of through the year long of the CSM, or even need them to get reelected, right? Because once you're elected, then you're in. So this idea that, like, just because, let's say, you're on Test's ballot doesn't mean that you're you're going to be beholden to Test's wishes for the next year. That isn't really the way that the CSM works.
No, but it's interesting. That's the way people get elected. It feels like a win for your team if you get more guys on your ballot on. It shows influence politically, I guess. It's turned into a competition among alliances to get guys on.
Right. And that's what I was talking about earlier.
Right. And that to me is like, well, wait a minute. What's going on here? Is it just a competition that you want to win because there's like something attached to it? Or is this really a competition of influence on the game itself, which terrifies me, right? Like that. The idea that nullsec is dominating and to influence the game development, I think, is that sending us into a certain way of developing the game. Torvald?
Yeah, so we got to remember what the CSM, their function is basically, I mean, it sucks because, I mean, as far as I know, they don't have any suggestive power. It's basically just CCP brings up, here's what we want to do, give us your feedback. And I mean, we've heard from the past, sometimes it's not even taken in. But yeah, we got to remember, like, we're talking about all the political stuff and all, the connections and whatnot. But that's the most important part when you think about who you're putting up for CSM is like what, their knowledge, their abilities, and what they can bring to the table with CCP. So when they're sitting at the table with CCP and CCP says, hey, this is what we want to do. This is our idea. You got to think of, you wouldn't think of that player having the whole game in mind. I mean, because you got to think of all the different aspects of EVE Online, and you want to see that person, while yes, they should think about their people, you want to think about, hey, if we do this to the game, how will this affect this group of players? And we see that time and time again with, things that affect certain parts screwing other parts of the game. I mean, all kinds of stuff like that. There's so many examples, Citadels being a big one, but all kinds of stuff like that. And so things you got to remember.
Yeah, because you have to understand that this game is completely interconnected. There's no real part of this game that's like not connected with another. Like, yeah.
So, Noizy Gamer, you're someone that watches CSM for a long time. You were part of CSM Watch when, in its title, that show was about watching the CSM to see if they were unduly influencing the game for tribal advantage. What do you think of all the structure versus the representation?
Okay, so the representation, is it sections of space that are being represented or whales that are being represented? I've always maintained that the CSM is not only a focus group to see about the game, but a focus group to ask the people who spend the most money in the game, have the most commitment to the game, are the most organized in the game, that help pay the bills, what they think. So, I mean, and let's be honest, that's basically nullsec. That's where the people are That's where the organization is. That's, I mean, you have, and then you have like key people that can make decisions, and then you'll have thousands of people or hundreds of people agree with them instead because they trust them. I mean, you're not part of a nullsec alliance if you don't trust your leadership. And so if you're going to trust your leadership with your expensive titans and your supers or your works, you're going to trust them with your vote. And so that's what happens. And so that's what I think. It's not so much areas of space. It's the people that are actually paying the bills. What do they think of, or to be nicer, the people that are most committed to the game, what are they thinking?
Yeah, so that's interesting. So it's kind of like the landowners voting. Is that where we are?
Interesting.
Pretty much.
It reminds me. You remember who was the big YouTube PvP guy? He had that great tagline, which is, don't rise above your station and vote. And I always kind of joke, like, if you live in nullsec, you're important. Everyone else, don't worry about voting, because everyone just says it's the nullsec blocks. But I mean, there's lots and lots of different candidates that get on that aren't in nullsec, So I think it's really important for everyone just to get out and vote. And, if you happen to put Matterall at number 1, that's great. Number 2,
by
okay.
The person that said, don't, what was it? Know your station was.
Know your station.
Know
Don't
your
rise
station.
above it.
Well, I think he was talking down to somebody. He was talking down to somebody who he thought was not able to compete with his ideas, and that was, I'm losing my name. He actually quit dramatically, just disappeared, and then came back, I think, later, and that was about 2 years ago. And I don't know, or don't remember his name. I'll tell you, in EVE, if you stop playing, doesn't matter who you were, your name goes away if people don't repeat it over and over and over again. So immortality just depends on the people who keep talking about you after you leave.
Gotta have a legacy.
It wasn't Wingspan. It was an English guy.
It was like a P or something, and he was really great at
Mr. Hyde.
That's it, Mr. Hyde.
Mr. Hyde, yeah.
Bingo.
Don't know your station. That is a classic funny line. Yeah. And he was talking to Reload. So that was pretty good. I think that's something British say, because in America, know your station doesn't really mean anything. I
just looked it up, and it's from Prince Charles.
Oh God!
In 2004.
Okay, yeah, it's a very English statement where classism is a bigger deal, I think.
It's somewhat antiquated, to be fair.
Yeah. All right, so CSM starts Monday. That is tomorrow, or when you're listening to this today. So make sure you vote. Most people vote in the first, I think, 3 days, and especially the first day is a big voting day. People want to do their duty and vote right away. My last thing on this, is there a way to mechanize the voting? Can you give somebody a URL that they click and it automatically puts everything in order for you?
I think CCP stopped that when they obviously saw that large player groups are using it. I thought it was. I think they did it for convenience, the one time, for people who have multiple accounts. But I think they found a different way that basically means that people can't distribute basically a list or distribute a URL that fills in by itself, sort of thing. I think it's a case of if they're going to do it like last year, then essentially it's going to be you fill it in once, and then once you filled it in, when you log back into other accounts that you have, it'll remember that. But I don't think there'll be an actual URL that you can use. I think it's probably like a cookie that stores itself on your computer.
If I remember correctly, the history of that was that it was a post, not a get, or sorry, get, not a post. So the URL actually had the details in it. So it wasn't like it was intentional, but you could just give somebody the URL and it would already fill it out.
Yeah, was that just an error of the past kind of thing?
I think so. I don't know. I hope not. I hope so. Let's just put it that way.
I mean, at that point, you're getting close to AFKing the vote, right? Like, or
They still have to submit.
oh, you're right. That's the decision point, but it doesn't leave much. I mean, it's like anchor and hit F1. So if you make it that simple,
it's almost like, you know, assigning drones to people.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. The decision is made once you assign drones. After that, it doesn't matter who the targets are.
I can make some jokes about it also, but
I think the whole game is trying to get to a point where more individual action means, you know, is more visible rather than just group think, group play. So it would be, even for my own, that would be a tool that I would love to have and use. And if it's available, I will find it and use it, because I have to use everything to try to win this election. Let me say something about that. I was going to run for CSM and not do any publicity at all, and not even do any type of influencing at all, because I felt like it runs against what Talking Station's all about. And that is true to a certain degree. But when I talked to my friend Minxie, who I value her advice very much, she said that would be incredibly arrogant. So I thought, oh, you're right. That would be incredibly arrogant. So I will work hard for this. And that's why everything that I've done up until now has been to campaign, even though I'm extremely reluctant to do it. And horse trading and all that. I actually only traded one alliance some influence, and everybody else put me on their list just by me asking, not by me trying to give them something. So, yeah.
Yeah, and just to let everybody know who's relatively new, Minxie actually got the most votes in CSM in the CSM 5 election, and was made the chairman by doing that. That's back when they had first past the post and they had the office of chairman.
Yep. All right. So there's the last thing I wanted to talk about with CSM, and that is I'm thinking that Talking in Stations should, you know, because it's a democracy and it's political, and, you know, there's politics and war and all these other social things that we look at, that it might be interesting to do exit polling. So look out for that. We might actually do exit polling and just try to track it every day and give updates every day on like where the election is and where we think it is. It may not be accurate, but it would be fun to do. I think it would be something to keep people engaged as well. Let me know what you guys think about that. Okay, so is there anything else, guys? Do you guys want to?
I'm just saying right now, I'm not building a 3D set for this.
Come on,
Not
this is
happening.
like the best TV possible is politics. All right, well, we're gonna leave it there, and I want to thank Ashtarothi McLeod, Noizy Gamer, Ron, and Torvald. Thank you very much for showing up. Actually, Torvald and Noizy, is there anything that you want to say to the audience? Or I don't like shout outs very much, but is there something you want to plug or anything like that?
I'll just go ahead and say, got Eve Toronto coming up next week, guys, and get excited for that. And then invasion stuff, I guess we expect, or we're going to kind of hopefully see something happen every week. Yeah, those are the two things I'm excited for: Eve Toronto and further invasion stuff. Things are going to get a lot cooler from here on out.
Okay, and for me, also, I will be at EVE North. For all you people that see me that Thursday before the event, if I don't drink with you, it's doctor's orders. I'm not allowed to drink until Friday night. So that's number one. And number two, please, whatever you do, and even if I come out across a little bit cynical, please make sure that you go out and vote for at least one candidate to just to show to people that, yes, people do care about CSM at least a little bit.
And if you can't think of what that one candidate should be, I have a suggestion. Put Matterall number one, and then you've done something.
Do far
Ash?
worse.
Yeah. Thanks, Ash. What's up, Ash?
Yeah, so I just wanted to remind everybody that CCP is actually doing a huge promotion right now. If you have Twitch Prime, a lot of people don't realize this, but if you have Amazon Prime, you also get Twitch Prime for free. And so if you have Twitch Prime, you can right now click on the little crown up there and get a bunch of goodies from CCP. I think they have within the next month, including 15 free days of Omega, 150,000 skill points, a free Senessus, and a new Senessus skin that's purple like Twitch. So it's really, really cool. I'm thankful for CCP for doing this, and everybody that has Amazon Prime or Twitch Prime should take advantage of it.
All right, that's awesome. Okay, thanks everyone for tuning in. One last plug that if you are listening to this and you are a fan of my work, then please vote CSM #1 position for Matterall. Do me that one favor, because I don't have a block and I'll get eliminated by the guillotine early on if I don't generate at least 1,000 accounts voting for me in the #1 position. So that is my last and final plea.
And I'm going to be streaming later, and I'm going to inform the important people, nullsec, how to vote. So look for that later tonight.
Awesome. Oh yeah, and vote for Exuki too. Make that your #2 spot. Okay, everyone. Thanks very much. Thanks for showing up, and thanks for all the subs. Terrific. You guys are so generous. Love that. Love seeing that. That's all we have for this week. We will see you next week on Talking in Stations.
All right, we're out on audio.